Thank you. Also trying to watch my 15 minutes. And the job of the interpreters, it's not an easy one, so Tibor is my first name, and John Wesley is the name of the college I'm representing here, alongside with the Hungarian Pedagogical Society. I was asked to talk about a very complex issue, which is about skill mismatch. So today I decided to talk about 5 key points. First, about the definition of skills. So regardless the new technologies, regardless the reality that you can move from one country to another, and you can buy the latest gadget what you want. If you are not owning knowledge, if you are not knowing the certain definitions, it's very hard to go inside the discussion. Either you are a university student or you are an employee of a government or a for-profit organization. Then we want to define jointly what the type of mismatches are, as there are several reasons for that. So it's not as simple as it looks like. Also, I want to introduce one of the buzzwords very frequently used by economists, and especially in labor economics, which is the equilibrium. So how we are designing the skill equilibrium by individuals and also by countries or organizations. Then I want to showcase a couple of the reasons and also the solutions to overcome of these barriers. And then, again, it looks simple, but obviously we are representing very different viewpoints. And the standing point is also declaring our viewpoint, how we are actually observing certain situations, how we are thinking about certain situations or problems around us. So just please, hands up, let me know who's are representing the government today, government officers. Any type of government. Don't be shy, that's a job to do. Okay, and those who are representing for-profit companies, HR, okay. NGOs, civil society, even shyer than the government officers this afternoon, okay. And then university students probably? Okay. And hands up who has kids. So you are here also as a parent who's care about the future of your own kids. Okay, thank you. So let's see how the different viewpoints can be combined when we are talking about skill mismatches. So first let's see the definition. So when we are talking about skills and the mismatch of the skills, it's definitely a situation where on one hand we have the employers looking for certain type of skills, and on the other side we have the individuals of a country, citizens of a country, who are looking for jobs. In labor economics, we are usually calling them the household, and the households could be one individual or more individuals together. So some types of mismatch between the two sides. Well, from the first side, it's very easy to say that when we are talking about mismatches, the general scapegoats are the educators. There were so many educators here in the morning, universities saying that they are doing the best for their students, vocational schools, they are doing the best for the students. But if you ever had engaged in policy discussion, the first institutions usually blame, not only in Europe, but everywhere in the globe, are the schools. Because we can say that the schools are not capable and universities are not capable to teach the future generation for the skills which are needed in the labor market. And then a lot of fancy words about the new type of skills which are needed. Only the soft skills are counted and not the rest of the skills. But if you dig deeper in the literature, then you are realizing that basic skills, in other words, fundamental skills, like literature, that knowing your own mother tongue well, mathematics or calculation, are still counts in the modern labor market. So behind the mind, there are other type of investigations as well. The other side, which we also have to address, is the economy. And labor market is obviously part of an economy of a country, of a region, of a city, the European Union, or any other globalized entity. So it could happen as well, and this is very often the case in countries where there is a huge young generation coming in to the labor market, that the decision makers are in trouble because they have to upkeep the job creation. This is absolutely a situation also in Azerbaijan at the moment. One hand, it's a very positive sign that it's a young population. On the other hand, it's put plenty of pressure on the decision makers, on the ministers who were sitting here in the morning to keep the job creation going. Okay, so let's see what are the different approaches of the different players in this field. So first we have to talk about the individuals. So at the individuals level, there is a serious wage penalty if somebody is taking a job position where he or she is overqualified, but the employer is not ready or not capable to pay a higher wage. But also, going beyond the economical context, going beyond the labor market context, if somebody is unsatisfied with a job, also could be unsatisfied with a life. So it could create a plenty of tension, which were addressed in the morning panel several times. So well-being or mental health is also an issue when we are talking about skill mismatch in the market. From the company's perspective, obviously skill mismatches also have negative consequences, which we usually describing as a lack of productivity, lack of competitiveness in the market, in your local market, but once you are competing with other companies outside of Azerbaijan, it could be a lack of competitiveness at the global level as well. So all the companies, all the for-profit companies are to bridge this skill gap because they are looking for, as they call it, there's a war for talent. And war for talent, if we are looking behind the mind, means nothing else that they are looking for people who fits to their jobs, which need to be done. So what's the implication for the company's side? It basically means that if they have shortages in skills, they are not able to implement the new products, the new services, or they are not able to use new technologies. So they are lagging behind, and what is usually happening, what Schumpeter described 100 years ago, it's a creative disruption. So basically these companies are dying. And very often, in the modern labor markets, the life expectancy of companies, especially small and micro companies, much shorter than the career expectancy of individuals. So again, it's a type of discrepancy. What are the situations for the governments, the countries, the regions, so cities level? The skill mismatch is obviously an issue here as well because it can increase unemployment, increase underemployment, so it has a strong effect of competitiveness. Now we are all running in a globalized world, so obviously all the countries are competing with each other, looking for investors. So if there is a skill mismatch, that's obviously a bad news for a government. If we want to understand the whole situation using this matrix and comparing with the low and the high skilled equilibrium, equilibrium is basically means balance for economists. So, and there are different type of balances in the labor market, different type of balances for countries, for individuals, and also for the firms as well. So what most of the countries or most of the stakeholders, individuals and companies are looking for is obviously a high skill equilibrium, which means that there is a high level of skill supply and also a very high level of skill demand. But it's not always optimal. The situation is not always optimal as it could happen in labor markets time to time. So also we are facing with situation where there are skill surpluses. Skill surpluses basically means that there is a high level of supply, so the job seekers, citizens are ready to take the jobs and they are well educated, they are well trained, but there is no demand. So basically the companies or the governments together not able to create enough jobs. What are the consequences of the skill surpluses? A huge number of outflow from those countries. So this is what also this region observed in the 90s. You are already fading this memory, but that was a reality here in the 90s. What could be the other way around when we have a skill gaps and shortages, when basically there is a high level of demand, so the employers, the companies, the governments as the biggest employer all around the globe, looking for well-trained individuals, but there are not enough of them. So then how can these challenges tackled? So to understanding this, first we have to make differences between different type of skill mismatches. So skill mismatches is a word very frequently used in the social media, in television, if you are still following the old type of broadcasting. But what's behind, it's very often not really described, because the reasons are different. So one reason is when there are a skill shortage, so basically the demand is lower than which requested by the supply side, and the surplus is the opposite, when we have a supply but no demand for that. So both sides could create a skill gap when the demand and the supply side, so basically individuals, households, and companies are not able to meet with their different needs. I'm not going through of all of these different definitions, because probably that's enough for this afternoon, but just I want to note that still there are differences between overskilling and overeducation and overqualification. Very often in the daily practice, even in the daily talk of career practitioners, who should know it better, I would say, that's not the same when we are talking about overskilled or underskilled population or overeducated or undereducated population. So there are very strict differentiations between these type of terminologies. What are the consequences of all of these? So first, as an actor, as a government, as a company, as a household, if you want to jump into the situation because you are observing a skill shortage, you have to identify what type of shortage you are facing with. So yes, figures are important, but we have to listen to the figures. Each figure has a story to tell to us. So understanding the fact behind the figures, I would say it's a very important exercise for everybody. So what can be the solutions? And here I want to talk about the formal economies and also the less formal economies, because the solutions could be different. So in less formal economies, I would say this is what we are observing in many countries in Africa, Latin America, and also in Central Asia nowadays, that there is a high level of informality. And to be honest, I would still feel that outside Baku, probably still this is the situation. So a high level of informality, where the states, the public employment service, the occupational safety and health network, the labor code are probably not as strong as in the capitals or as in big cities. So informal networks are still very important, even in very developed economies. Like in my home country. In Hungary, how we are making business in Budapest, it's very different how we should do the business in the countryside. So informal networking is very important, and this is what we call informal apprenticeship, which is typically an apprenticeship, but it's not in the formalized way. And as you're going to see, I'm going to list a couple of other items which are also connected with less formal economies and solutions for this. On-the-job learning by doing is obviously something what we are identifying with apprenticeship, but it's in informal or less formalized economies, this is not the way how we call it. So even within the European Union, it could happen that some of the recommendations are coming from the European Commission, which are telling to the member state that the member states have to introduce apprenticeship. And I guess these are the recommendations also coming outside the European neighborhood countries like Azerbaijan. But what shall you do if this concept is missing from your legislation? If this concept is completely missing from your way how you are doing business? Then you have to rely on solutions which are homegrown. So for example, on-the-job learning is a way of doing this. And non-formal skills training is also a way to do this. I just want to highlight the last one, the non-traditional way of acquiring skill. So social media, broadcasting was mentioned so many times in this morning, even probably too much for my taste. But as a career professionals, are you aware of that watching YouTube can be also a way of learning skills and not only entertaining yourself? So instead of posting 100 posts in the Facebook in a morning, can you use Facebook to learn something? Can you turn the social media as a supporting friend of you to learning for skills and not only just using their time? And what are we doing in more formal economies? So short-term training is definitely one solution, which is a type of apprenticeship or traineeship, in other words. And what is coming now very much in the agenda of the European member states is the ILA. Probably this is a new abbreviation for many of you, the individual learning account, which works like a saving account for the individuals, for the workers, but co-financed by the state and by the employers. So if employers are arguing that they need more skilled people, then they should invest in the skills sets of countries. Validation is still there. I know that this is something you already tried out in Azerbaijan, but still I think it's a lot of space for validation of non-formal and informal learning, not only for the migrants. That's a big misunderstanding when we believe that validation is for migrants, so workers coming abroad, because this is also very useful for your own low-skilled population. So those people are not able to verbalize, they are not able to tell you what type of problems they are facing with, but they would completely fit to a job. And you will, as an HR officer, you will never know that because of the missing verbal coding. Okay, and last but not least, I also listed here the job evaluation, which was very nicely described by previous speakers, so I'm not going into details, but what's the point here? The point is that because of the technological changes mainly, the job positions are changing so rapidly within organizations, within the for-profit, the NGOs, but also in the government business. If there is not a regular HR reviewing mechanism of job evaluation, then you easily can end up in a situation where the job description is already far-fetched for the actual activities. So you are not realizing that certain applicants would be capable to filling your vacancies. Okay, and I was also asked to do this part, so what can be done in Azerbaijan. I'm running a bit over time, 2 more minutes if I can get that. Well, as you see, obviously I am a foreigner, hardly speak the language here. So what I'm going to tell you are good experiences from different countries, including countries in the region. So as, for example, ETF or ILO has been very closely following what is happening here. So let's see what can be done in the different levels. So we identify the companies level, the individuals, and also the states, the cities, or regional governments. Okay, so at companies level, it's very clear what we are facing with. It's a productivity issue and a lack of competitiveness. So what can be done? Basically, I just regrouped the different type of activities I was suggesting in my previous slides. So offering mentoring program, offering mentorship. Also validate the skills of your applicants. So don't wait necessarily for the government or NGOs. And then doing the job evaluation as a regular activity. Then what can be done at the individual levels, where the job satisfaction and the wage effects are super important? Use career guidance and validation services as a user, as a citizen. Develop and upkeep your skill portfolio. This was mentioned in the morning panel. Use your own resources for saving and save something also for learning. So investing in your own learning, this is your most important investment for your own future. And also, last but not least, rely on your community. Rely on your community where you can gain informal learning and apprenticeship, informal apprenticeship. These are very important. And the last slide about the states, the cities, and regional governments. What can they do? So this is going to be the last abbreviation, what I'm going to share with you. Developing competency-based matching systems like the European Union has now, the European Skills, Competencies and Occupation structure, which goes beyond the occupational matching. I think this is a very powerful tool, would be another one-day conference to discuss what is exactly. Financing the learning and investing in the learning of the citizens through the choices of the individuals. So one very important element of the individual learning account that we are creating a quasi-market solution. So we are letting the individuals, we are letting the households to make options, which type of schools, which type of short-term training they want to take, instead of telling them as a public employment service, as a university, where they should go. And last but not least, because this is a conference about career guidance, setting up and maintaining is also important, career guidance services and validation services. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pecze.